Hi guys, today we're going to talk about dividing decimals by decimals using models. And the I can statement that we are working on today is I can divide decimals by decimals using models and the standard algorithm. And we're really going to focus on the models portion. Now, in the last set of quadrants that you did, we looked at modeling decimal division with money, dollars, dimes, and pennies. But we're going to go back to the 10 by 10 grid and see if that can help us understand why we do what we do when we're dividing with a decimal by a decimal. So we're going to have a decimal in the divisor. And what do we do with that? So let's begin. Pull out your companion guides. Okay, so we're going to look at this guide, and I'm also going to suggest that you go on, if you need to pause the video and do this, and grab yourself some colored pencils, because you're going to want to use different colors just to help you see what's going on a little better in these models. But I think you're going to love them. So let's begin with number 1. We have 2/10 divided by 5/100. So I have an amount that's not even 1, and I'm going to divide it by an amount that's also not 1. So let's start by looking at the whole. Do I need to divide the whole? I don't. I only need to divide 2/10. That's my divisor. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to trace 2/10 so I know this is the only space I'm looking at. So here we go. In that 2/10, you might want to, on the back of this sheet is where you can make any observations or any predictions that you have, or you're even going to also start thinking about what are some rules for dividing decimals by decimals. So if you have at any point you've got a great idea or an aha moment, jot it down on the back of the paper, and I would love to talk about that with you. Also, if I'm going too fast or you need more time to color in something, you can always pause the video. That's okay, and just don't forget to push play when you're done. So here we go. I've got 2/10, and remember a tenth is a full row or full column. So I chose to outline 2 full columns because each column represents 1/10. But I'm making groups of 5/100. So I'm really asking how many 5/100 fit in 2/10. Does that sound familiar? It should remind you of what we talked about when we were dividing with fractions. So let's look at that. Here we go. I am going to use a new color each time I make a group to help me go back and visually see how many groups there are. So I'm going to choose my light purple, which actually does not look like light purple when I draw it on here, but that's okay. And I'm going to shade in 5/100. So there's one group of 5/100 that I can make. Okay, I'm going to grab my green and I'm going to shade in another 5/100. Okay, I can make 2 groups so far. Does anyone have a prediction right now? Jot it down maybe over here off to the side, how many groups you think we're going to make. So here's another group of 5/100. And here is my final group of 5/100. So I have completely shaded it in so I know it goes in evenly, and I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 groups were made. So let's look at this from a different, using a different division problem. And this is going to kind of remind, or should remind you of the video we watched a while ago, our introduction to the last set of quadrants, where we were talking about dividing by tens and multiplying by tens. So here I have 2/10 divided by 5/100. And really, when I look at this 2/10, I could think of it as 2/10. Or I can also think of it as 20/100 because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 squares that made up my 2/10. And so if I think about it in terms of squares, what I really did was I took 20 squares and I divided them into groups of 5. And I got 4. Which is interesting because when I took my 2/10 and divided it by 5/100, I also got 4. So you may start to see some patterns or some observations that you're going to want to jot down. Please do not forget to put those on the back of this, this worksheet. Okay, and let's see, you might be formulating some ideas now, so let's see if that will work here. Take a guess, maybe jot down your guess over here, what you think 1 8/10 divided by 9/10 is going to be. Jot it down, and if you're wrong, so what? Because we're going to find the right answer using the models. So for this one, I have more than one whole. So I'm going to outline again the whole, but I also need an additional 8/10 from this one. So really, I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns, and I'm going to outline this because we can all agree, because you guys are all really great at modeling decimals on these grids, that 1 8/10 is one whole plus 8/10 of a second. I don't have two wholes yet. And what I want to know is how many times can 9/10 fit into 1 8/10? And if you'll remember, 9/10 is going to be 9 full columns. So let's go ahead and let's shade in 9 full columns on our grid here. So take your time. Pause the video if I'm coloring faster than you color, but go ahead and shade in 9/10. So I shaded in and I noticed, well, that doesn't make up the whole yet. So I'm going to have to grab another color and I'm going to shade in 9/10 again. So I've got 1/10 left over here. And I've got 8 over here. So 1 and 8 has another 9/10. So that takes up the whole rest of my 1 and 8/10. So go ahead and shade that in as well. And you know, when you're watching these videos, if you're on YouTube, in the bottom right corner, you get that little gear for the settings. If I'm going too fast or too slow, you can speed up or slow down the video timing through the settings as well. Just another thing you can do. All right, so let's look. Here we go. I did it and I was able to shade it in 2 full times. So I know 1 8/10 divided by 9/10 is 2. And let's look at that. What I really had here, how many squares did I have that made up 1 8/10? 180. Okay, so I had 180. And when I divided it into, well, 9/10 was made up of 90 squares. So 90 goes into 180 2 times. You might also think of it in terms of how many columns we have. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 full columns. So you might have thought of the division problem as 18 columns divided by, well, 9/10 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 columns. 18 divided by 9 is 2. Does this look familiar? 180 squares, hundredths, divided by 90 hundredths. We were able to do that 2 times, made 2 groups. If I took 18/10 and divided it by 9/10, I would get 2 groups. And if I took 1 and 8/10 divided by 9/10, I also got 2. So I hope you're still formulating some observations and generalizations and patterns. See if maybe you can come up with the rule before we get to the practice. Okay, so let's look at number 3. Threw my pen. 1 and 1500. So here we go. Let's outline. I'm going to take one whole, and I'm only going to take 15 here. So I have 1 full column plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 here. So here we go. This is what I've got. Now, there are many ways you can shade in 23 hundredths over and over and over. But for me, because I like to keep it organized, I'm going to do it a little differently, and you'll see. I'm going to shade in. What I'm basically asking is, how many times can 23 hundredths fit into 1 and 15 hundredths? So I know 23 hundredths is 2 tenths plus another 3 little squares, right? So let me shade in my 2 tenths over here. And just to keep it organized, I'm going to shade in 3 tenths over here, because does it really matter where I shade? It doesn't. All right. Next, I'm going to pick another color, and I'm going to shade in another 23 hundredths because I think it'll fit. So here we go. We got my 20 here and 3 right there. All right. I'm going to do it again. 23 hundredths. Here's my 20. And another 3. I can do it again. Here's 20. And 3. So I've shaded in another 23. Grab in and pull out another color. Here is 20. And 3. Oh, phew, done. Shaded them all in. So how many groups or how many colors did we use? How many groups can we make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now this one might not be as obvious, but let's look at what we really did here. We took 115 total squares to make up the whole and divided it by 23. Now pause the video and go ahead and work this out and see what you get. All right, you done? When I took 115 and divided by 23, I got 5. Ooh, 5, 5. All right, let's look at one last problem. 2 and 88 hundredths. So this one's going to be the big one, right? I need 2 wholes and 88 hundredths. So I'm going to have 8 full columns, and then I'm going to have 8 more on the 9th column shaded in. So let's go ahead and let's trace our whole or outline our whole here so that we know what represents the total amount that we've got. Okay, and I'm going to split this into 72 hundredths, and I'm going to do it very similar to up here because those little 2's are going to get in my way later on if I don't. Okay, so I'm going to start off by shading in. The 7 represents my tenths, right? So I'm going to shade in 7 full columns because it takes 10 columns to make up one whole. Okay, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7, plus 2 more here. You've got a prediction? Go ahead and jot it down off to the side. Let's do another 7 tenths. This is 3 tenths. And another 4 tenths. And let's just go ahead and keep on shading in 72 tenths. This is where you might want to pause the video and do all of your shading and try it out on your own and see if you can figure it out with me. We're done. All right, so let's look. To shade in my 72 hundredths, oops, I didn't do a very good job with these ones over here. I needed to use 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, so I knew 72 can go in 4 times. Let's look at what we really did. I took 100, 200, 88. So 288 little hundredth squares. And I divided it into groups the size of 72. And that gave me, well, gave me 4 groups. Pause the video and see, what is 288 divided by 72? Did you figure it out? Did you get 4? Well, there you have it. We are done with this portion of the lesson. So come on and show me what you put down as far as observations, and let's have a chat. All right, see you soon.